All right, what's going on, everybody? Big news today for the Florida Gators as four-star defensive back and Gators legacy, Ben Hanks Jr. has committed to the Florida Gators. I am Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online, and we're going to break down today's big news, tell you kind of how it happened, going to tell you what kind of player the Florida Gators are getting and what it means overall for Florida. So Ben Hanks Jr., the number 11 cornerback in the country, has committed to the Florida Gators. All right. It's a big deal. He's the number 11 cornerback in the country. As I said, he's also the number 102 recruit nationally in the country. So this is a really significant pickup for the Gators. Excellent player. He's got length. He's 6 foot, 170 pounds. He's physical at the point of attack. He can really get after it. And I've got to do a couple of things here, so I'm going to try to multitask. So Ben Hanks Jr., again, the number 11 cornerback in the country, number 102 recruit nationally. I'm just going to add in a photo of Ben here real quick so everybody can take a look at him. And so what's Florida getting in Ben Hanks? Well, first of all, we need to point out this is commitment number 13 for the Florida Gators, okay? Number 13 for the Florida Gators. And, he's somebody that when you look at the class, is somebody that we think could contribute fairly early in his Gator career, even though Florida is set to return really a high number of really quality defensive backs when you talk about who they're going to have coming back next year. All right. But they also may be losing players such as Jason Marshall. He's a senior. They're also going to be potentially losing another defensive back, so who could go early to the NFL. So again, they're going to be losing potentially some good players, but also returning a bunch of good players. But what makes me think Ben Hanks Jr. could play early for the Florida Gators? First of all, again, he's got the size, 6'1", 170 pounds. He's got great length, okay, long arms. He can get after the football. He had 6 interceptions last season. So this is a guy that can be a ball hawk in the secondary. He's physical, even though he's a little bit on the skinny side right now. I think people will recall that his father, Ben Hanks Sr., was actually a safety coming out of high school and grew into a linebacker. So Ben Hanks Jr. at 6'1", 170 pounds probably isn't done growing. He's actually grown a significant amount just since last year alone. So we think that this is a guy that is going to continue to grow and grow into that body and fill out and, really become somebody that trying to find a good photo of him, and it's just not happening. But so again, we think he's somebody that could contribute early. Now, long-term, obviously, he's a guy that can develop into a full-time starter at Florida. We should point out again, Florida doesn't have, you always have a big need at the cornerback position. But remember, Florida added 2 transfers this past offseason, one being Cormani McClain from Colorado, a former 5-star, and Jameer Grimsley from Alabama as a transfer, a 4-star. Those are young guys. Cormani McClain entering his second year, Jameer Grimsley entering his first year. Jakeem Jackson's another young corner. Florida signed Teddy Foster last year. So the Gators, even though Jason Marshall will be one guy that, is departing after this season, and there could potentially be others, they are still a team that has some good DBs. But we think Ben Hanks has the right stuff to get on the field early. And I wanted to mention one other player and I always forget. Devin Moore is the other defensive back. Now, he's a junior, but we're hearing so many good things about how well he's competing and practicing during the offseason that if he has a good season, he could be gone too. So you could lose some good ones. You're also returning some good players, some good young players, but Ben Hanks having the bloodlines, having that Miami dog in him that so many recruits in South Florida have, the body, the frame, the ball skills, the athleticism, the physicality, the willing to compete. These are things that make us think that he could contribute early, certainly late. He's going to be a potential star at Florida, but could play early. So commitment number 13 for the Florida Gators, who, by the way, now are already up to number 13 in the recruiting team rankings. Now that's number 13, number 20. I'm trying to multitask, guys. Number 20 in the recruiting team rankings. And if I could ever get Ben Hanks' photo right, we could do this the right way, and I could actually concentrate. But again, big pickup, commitment number 13 for the Gators. You've got a class that's now 20th, and it wasn't that long ago, guys, that Florida was outside the top 50 in the recruiting team rankings, now all the way up to number 20. So the class is starting to come together. All right. It's starting to come together. All right. So in terms of significance, you also have to consider this. This is a player that is a South Florida product. And in this class, Florida is trying to go pretty strong in South Florida. You now have 2 elite recruits from the Miami to Palm Beach area committed with Ben Hanks Jr., again, just outside the top 100, but the number 11 cornerback recruit in the country. And then don't forget, 4-star receiver Joshua Moore is from Pembroke Pines, Florida, West Broward High School, just west of Fort Lauderdale. So he's committed to Florida. You have 2 really solid commitments in South Florida, and Florida is well positioned to land a couple more down the road, starting on August 25th, when 4-star receiver Nashawn Montgomery will announce his commitment, and Florida is the odds-on favorite to land him. He's, again, a 4-star receiver recruit at Miami Central. Last year, he played at Cardinal Newman High School in West Palm Beach, and he's originally from Rhode Island. So the class is starting to come together, all right? It's starting to come together. It's now in that number 20 position. If you land Nashawn Montgomery next weekend on the 25th of August, like we think Florida will do, then the class could work its way inside that top 20 as it inches toward where all of us think and expect a Florida class to be. So huge news today. Ben Hanks is a Florida Gator commitment. So let's go back in time. Let's take you back to the early 1990s. Some of you weren't born yet, as many of our younger readers like to point out to me because I'm a little older. In the early 1990s, Florida signed a safety/receiver out of Miami Senior High School. Booker T. Washington, where Ben Hanks Jr. plays, was not a high school back then. But at Miami Senior High School, there was a safety/receiver who signed with the Gators by the name of Ben Hanks Sr. All right. When he arrived at the University of Florida, for many years, the number 11 was a retired jersey. That means nobody used that jersey number. It was Steve Spurrier's jersey number in the 60s when he led Florida to 3 strong seasons and won the Heisman Trophy in 1966. Well, Spurrier didn't think much of retiring jerseys. So he had his jersey number and the jersey number worn by the great Scott Brantley unretired. And he got Scott's approval, obviously, and the administration at Florida and all that, and it got done. And the first player to wear number 11 after it was unretired was this guy. That's right, Ben Hanks Sr. Ben Hanks Sr., not just your typical Florida Gator, the first player to wear the unretired number 11 jersey, the jersey number that means so much in Gator lore and to Gator Nation and to Gator players. Ben Hanks Sr. We do not know yet what number his son will wear at the University of Florida, Ben Hanks Jr. But Ben Hanks Sr. wore that number. He now works for the Parks Department down in Miami. During this recruitment of his son, Ben Hanks Jr., there were times when it looked like, quite frankly, that Miami was the team to beat. When Will Harris arrived as Florida's secondary coach earlier this year, Florida made Ben Hanks Jr. even more of a priority. And in June, I would say that's the month when Florida really kind of took hold of this recruitment. First, Ben Jr. and his father officially visited the Florida Gators. I guess it was that second weekend in June. And during that visit, Ben Hanks Jr. got a feel for the Florida program. He got to hang out with other recruits. He got to bond with the coaching staff. And on that Saturday night of that official visit weekend, at the big the big recruit and family dinner at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, who happened to be there. And he's not there for every weekend official visit dinner that is at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. But the one and only Steve Spurrier was there, and he took a photo with Ben Jr. and Ben Sr. and hung out with them for a little bit. It was a big weekend. After that weekend, I talked to some sources who said, hey, Florida moved the needle during Ben Hanks Jr.'s official visit, but they weren't out of the woods yet. However, 2 weeks later, Ben Hanks Jr. and his father and the Booker T. Washington team were back in Gainesville for Florida's Friday Night Lights event, which is now a 7-on-7 event. But what we found out was that Ben didn't just come up that day for that event. He actually arrived, Ben Jr. arrived a day earlier. And during that day earlier, Ben Hanks Jr. watched Florida's actual team in organized team activities, what's better known as OTAs. So not only did he get a feel for a lot of other things during his official visit weekend, but 2 weeks later, during that visit to Gainesville, Ben Hanks Jr. got to see the team in action, how they function, how they compete, how they watch film, and how they are coached. So that was another big plus for the Florida Gators. The following day, he competed in the 7-on-7 event, Friday Night Lights, and then actually then went to Miami and began his official visit with the Hurricanes. But he delayed the start of that official visit because he was in Gainesville. So that was significant that he would spend those 2 days in Gainesville before his official visit to the University of Miami down in Coral Gables. It was a big get for Florida to have him on campus that weekend. At about that time, it was our understanding that Florida had positioned itself and was in a strong spot. There's also word out there that Ben's sister is going to be a volleyball player, I believe, maybe a preferred walk-on for the Florida Gators, and that certainly doesn't help either. In the end, there were 3 teams to watch: Florida, Miami, and Louisville, and quite frankly, Ben Hanks Jr. and Ben Hanks Sr. have great relationships with the Miami staff, and they have great relationships with the Louisville staff, so this was no slam dunk. So how did Florida get it done? Well, first and foremost, much like another legacy recruit, Vernell Brown III, Ben Hanks Jr. did not want to be treated as simply a legacy recruit. In other words, not as a guy that you should take for granted that he went to Florida, so you're going to get him too. He wanted to be treated like the elite recruit that he is. He wanted to feel the love, to feel like a priority, and Florida did that. A lot of credit here goes to first-year secondary coach Will Harris. When I talked to Ben Hanks Jr. 2 weeks ago down in South Florida, he told me that, hey, that's the guy I communicate with the most. It's Will Harris. So that is who he's connected with. That's who he's bonded with. And this is a big get for Will Harris, Florida's first-year secondary coach, who treated Ben Hanks Jr. like a priority recruit, not as a legacy foregone conclusion. Hey, I'm going to get this guy because his daddy went here. It doesn't work that way with some of the elite guys. They treated Ben like an elite recruit. He felt the love, and today he is a Florida Gator. Again, commitment number 13 for the Florida Gators, Ben Hanks Jr., a 4-star cornerback, 6'1", 170 pounds. Florida now, 13 verbals, as I said, the number 20 recruiting class in the country. When the summer began, Florida was sitting outside the top 50, making progress. Long way to go. It's still not the type of class that you all expect, but it's getting there. And should Florida have a strong season, we'll see. Should they have a strong season, that could allow Florida to jump back in the game with some players committed to other schools and also open the eyes of uncommitted prospects. And I'll give you one of them who also is South Florida, and that is 4-star linebacker Ty Jackson of Seminole Ridge High School in Loxahatchee. I believe that's up in Palm Beach County. Now, Ty Jackson is the number 1 linebacker in the country for the Florida Gators. For the Florida Gators. Number 1 linebacker. That's true, actually. Number 1 linebacker on the board for the Florida Gators. Number 1 linebacker in the country for on-3. He has visited Florida 3 or 4 times already this year, most recently for Florida's Grill in the Ville recruiting event in late July. Prior to that, he was in Gainesville in June for his official visit. Florida, they're moving up. They appear to be in a favorable position with Ty Jackson. I'm not ready to call Florida the leader yet, but certainly one of his top 2 or 3 teams, we believe. So a strong season certainly could help Florida there. So Florida doing good things down in South Florida with 2 commitments right now. Again, Ben Hanks Jr. and Joshua Moore, the 4-star receiver. Looking good for another 4-star receiver, Nashawn Montgomery, who announces August 25th. And then Ty Jackson, the 4-star linebacker from Seminole Ridge, who doesn't plan to announce a decision, at least doesn't plan to, until later in the year. We'll happen to see. I think Florida's in a good spot with him, but not necessarily as strong a spot as, but let's say, a Nashawn Montgomery, the 4-star receiver. But anyway, Ben Hanks, again, a little bit more on what type of player Florida is getting in him. I talked to his coach. It's a name that people who follow high school football and recruiting in the state of Florida may know well, Tim Ice Harris. He is his coach at Miami, Booker T. Washington, and he was once Ben Hanks Sr.'s offensive coordinator at Miami Senior High School. And Coach Harris told me 2 weeks ago down in South Florida that, I said, what makes Ben Hanks Jr. special? And he said, it's his competitive nature. He is a competitor. If he's in a camp, he is doing rep after rep. He's pushing kids out of the way so he can get an extra rep. He wants to compete against the best. He wants to attack the ball. If you put him at receiver, he wants to go against the best defensive back. So he has that strong desire. And I said, okay, how does he compare? What are the similarities to his father, Ben Hanks Jr. to Ben Hanks Sr.? He said, that's it. It's the work ethic. And so these are good things. All you Florida Gator fans certainly remember Ben Hanks Sr. back in the early to mid 1990s as an all SEC linebacker for the Gators. All right, let's get to some of your comments here. We appreciate you stopping by. So let me see if I can grab a couple of these. Sorry, I've been trying to keep track of everything. Let's see. All right, Rob says, sup, Gators. All right, another one. Hey, Robert, appreciate you being here. All right, Bruce Green, Napier is a relentless recruiter. Now he needs to win games. That is true, Bruce. You hit the nail on the head. That's really the only thing missing right now. The program rebuild seems to be going at the pace they expect it to go to, but at some point you've got to win football games, and that's where we're at right now. All right, next one. DeAndre asked, Keith, who do I think Florida lands next? Well, I gave it away just a minute ago. Nashawn Montgomery, the 4-star receiver from Miami Central, announces his commitment decision on August 25th. He visited Florida not once but twice in that last week in July. It was a month-long dead period before that, which meant no visits. Month-long dead period after that, no visits. So you had 1 week, a 1-week window where recruits could go wherever they wanted. Nashawn Montgomery chose to go to Florida not once but twice that same week. He says LSU is the other team to watch in his recruitment. But of the two, it's our understanding Florida has certainly made him more of a priority. So we feel like he is going to be Gainesville bound. All right. Gator Swag's happy. He is happy. And he says, keep the hate on UF. We love it. So he's happy and he likes the hate. He wants the hate. Bring it in. All right. Robert M. Talking about Ben Hanks Jr. Get him in our weight program, and he'll be a beast. Again, Ben Hanks Jr., 6'1", 170. If there was a concern about him maybe earlier in the year, even a year ago, it was, is he going to fill out? He was 5'11", 6 foot, but really thin. He's still thin now at 170, but he was way more thin than that. And I think that kept some schools, like a lot of schools offer, but it may have kept some schools, they might have had some apprehension, like maybe let's not push. Let's see him grow. Well, he did grow, and guess who pushed? His final three was Florida, Miami, and Louisville, but he also officially visited Georgia. FSU was heavily involved. There were a lot of schools really recruiting him hard. So even though it says it's a win over Miami and Louisville, technically Florida beat a lot of other schools too, including the University of Georgia, which really liked him, according to a lot of our sources. All right. Happy Friday we got here. All right. So here's a comment from Gator Swag. Florida's going 10-2 and Georgia's going 2-10 or 4-8. That is a bold prediction. I would say that. All right. James Williams. And I'm going to roll through these as fast as humanly possible. Excellent pickup. Now let's work on the offensive line. Good point. Florida currently has 13 commitments, number 20 class ranking, but no offensive line commits. You'll recall this spring, Florida had 2 guys committed on the offensive line. What happened? One of them, Peyton Joseph, backed off his pledge. And is now committed to FSU. Differing opinions as to why that fell through with Florida. Some people say Florida moved in another direction. His camp says he moved in another direction. That's water under the bridge. He's not going to Florida. Florida had another offensive lineman committed, a tackle, Enoch Wangoy, a 3-star tackle from Jacksonville. What happened to him? He reclassified. He's actually already on the team right now in Gainesville. He's practicing. He's in class. He reclassified from 25 to 24. So it's not like Florida didn't have guys committed. They just don't have any guys committed right now. So they're working on it, though. They're working on it. All right. Hunter says, can Will Harris stop swinging and missing on safeties? That would be great. Well, he's working on guys. I mean, it's been sort of a struggle at times with Florida secondary recruiting, and perhaps a couple big pickups recently can change that. And the first, obviously, is Ben Hanks Jr. today. All right, so you've landed a 4-star cornerback. Now, you also recently landed a 4-star safety, okay? So you have one of each in the 4-star safety. You're saying swinging and missing. Florida did land Demetrius Samuel of Heritage High School in Palm Bay, Florida, over in the Space Coast region. Got him a couple of weeks ago. Again, a 4-star kid, potential to be a top 100 recruit. So one corner committed in Hanks, one safety committed in Demetrius Samuel. We didn't have a lot of info on Demetrius Samuel through much of the recruiting cycle. In fact, Well, we had some because my coworker Corey Bender was writing about him a fair amount, but as a 2026 recruit, he reclassified to 2025 and then flipped from Syracuse to Florida. He had a lot of big programs after him too. So Florida now has 2 DBs committed. They'd like to add at least one more of each and maybe even 2 safeties. So still a lot of work to go there. Like Gator Swag says, need help on the O-line and D-line. That's true. Florida is still recruiting several big-name guys on the offensive line, but so far no bites yet. No bites since the other 2 guys that were committed. One of them reclassified, as I said, and one of them moved on. Let me go back to that. On the defensive line, Florida has a couple commits. One being, I always have to look at this. One of them was very recently, all right, I can never pronounce his name, Joseph Mbachu. All right, he was a 3-star guy from the greater Atlanta area. He had Florida was his first Power 5 offer on July 27th. He committed the next week. Then he got a ranking. He was unranked at the time. Well, since then, there's been some new developments in his recruitment. Florida's going to have to hang on. He says he has a sense of loyalty to the Florida Gators because, again, they were his first Power 4 offer. However, since Florida offered and got him on board, South Carolina has offered, Auburn has offered, and then just a few days ago, the University of Texas offered. Also, Florida has Jeremiah McLeod committed on the defensive line. But yes, work to be done on the line of scrimmage. No question about that. Robert says Billy Napier is cooking on the recruiting trail, need to win games, and the remainder of the class will fill in. Candle says incredible intel. That's overall my stumbles. I hope there's been more stumbles than usual. DeAndre Gosha says any DTs Florida is in on. I assume you mean defensive tackle. All right. Yes, there is. But first of all, Florida has 2 of them committed. As I said, Joseph Mbachu and Jeremiah McLeod, both from the state of Georgia. Florida also, in the meantime, is working on a couple of guys in Florida. One of them is Oklahoma commit Floyd Bucard, who is Nashawn Montgomery's teammate at Miami Central. Keeping the foot on the gas with him. Also, look out for Miami there. Don't be surprised if he attends a game this season. Then you have 3-star, maybe 4-star soon, Ohio State commit Jarquez Carter of Newberry High School. Again, 3-star Ohio State commit Jarquez Carter, but he's from Newberry, 15 minutes from Gainesville. He wants to see a more aggressive defensive line from Florida this year. If he sees that, and if Florida puts a good product on the field, it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to attend one and probably more Florida home games at the Swamp this year, win some games, have an aggressive attacking style defensive line, and Florida could be in position to flip him late in that class. All right, Brandon says agree, more OL and DL recruits. You are on the money there. S. Beck says great addition to the class with Ben Hanks Jr. Damn, it's great to be a Florida Gator. I know everybody's excited. 2 legacy recruits in this class, and they're both outstanding players. Both one of them's in the top 50. The other one's just outside the top 100. You got Vernell Brown III, long line of Browns that have played for the Gators. His dad, his granddad, a couple uncles. And then you've got now Ben Hanks Jr., son of Florida linebacker great, big old Ben Hanks Sr. All right, so Florida doing well on the legacy front. Don't forget, just this past week, or earlier this week, they landed another legacy, but on the basketball court. C.J. Ingram, son of tight end great Cornelius Ingram, 4-star basketball recruit, is going to be a Florida Gator too. So it's been big. It's been a big week, and it's a big cycle for legacies. All right. Rob says, hey, Keith, if the Gators are north of 8 wins, will we finish top 10 in recruiting? It's hard to say. Some kids do get locked into their commitments, and it's not always easy to flip people. A few things have to happen. I've actually been surprised. I didn't think these kids knew how tough Florida's schedule was, because usually kids are just doing their own thing. We take for granted sometimes that we all assume as fans of football, like I am and you are, that everybody's going to know that Florida's got this murder schedule, but some of them I thought maybe didn't know that they're just doing their own thing, and that they would just look at how many wins Florida had and how many losses. But in the past couple of weeks, I've had multiple recruits tell me, yes, they're well aware of how difficult the schedule is. So to me, 8 wins or more is an eye-opener to recruit. 6 or 7, I mean, it saves your job. It keeps you your job, but it doesn't necessarily open eyes. 8 or more opens eyes. 9 really opens eyes. And 10, if that should happen, then I think that, I don't want to say the floodgates open, but Florida has some real potential to make some noise late. But with 8 wins or more, what that happens is not only do you catch the attention of recruits, not only are they watching, not only are they going to the games and the Swamp is electric again and all this, that, and the other, You've got a young quarterback that you can build the program around in DJ Lagway. Hopefully he gets snaps this year. And if he looks good, that opens more eyes. But what it may do is it may help the people who actually make all this happen open up the checkbooks, okay, and say, I'm giving this to NIL, I'm giving that to NIL. Let's go get some dudes. This coaching staff has proven, if you win 8 or more, this staff will have proven that they can do some things. Now let's go get them some more guys. And I think you put it all together and there's potential for Florida to finish pretty strong. All right, let's get to a few more comments, and then I've got to get back to my life. So let's see here. All right. Trying to get through here. Hunter says it's not smart to only have one safety commit, especially when he reclassified. Hunter, I'm not arguing with you, but that's where things sit right now. Florida's still working on 4-star Miami commit. Oh my gosh. Am I going to forget his name? They're still working on people. Let's put it that way. And, but it's not always easy to flip guys. I can't believe I am not able to. Could somebody help me out here? A guy I've only written about 800 times here. Anyway, they're still working on guys. All right. They're still working to flip guys. They're still working to, still going under and going over the film, looking for new guys. New players are going to emerge this fall. Now, this is going to kill me. So let's get to this right now. How in the world am I not able to remember one simple name? So much on my mind, and you guys are going to help me, I know, but and it's going to just destroy Hilton Stubbs. There you go. Thank you, guys. So still working on Hilton Stubbs, the 4-star Miami commit, but I will tell you the word is that Miami is very confident that they're going to keep him in the class. Meanwhile, I talked to a couple Florida commitments who say that they think he's probably going to stick too. But I should point out that it was last year at this time that Florida began to evaluate an unknown safety in the Tampa area. Nobody had really offered him. None of the big schools really knew who he was, but Florida did. They evaluated him throughout the season, and he ended up being a 4-star Gators signing, and that's Gregory Smith. So there are people out there still to be discovered, okay? Now, that's not how you want to build a class because you're counting on yourself to outsmart everybody on multiple guys. Well, you may be doing it on 2 or 3 guys. But the other schools in the SEC and in Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame, they have good coaching staffs too. But keep on working on Hilton Stubbs. Hope that you maybe unearth some new guys, stuff like that. They're just going to have to keep working on it. And we're going to find out on August 31st when we see that visitors list, who shows up at the Florida-Miami game, who is Florida really involved with, right? So we're going to learn a lot more there too. So, all right, I think that will do it. I appreciate everybody for helping me remember Hilton Stubbs' name. Maybe I am getting old, but that will do it for this rapid reaction. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge day. A huge day. Ben Hanks Jr., number 11 cornerback in the country, is going to be a Florida Gator. He has committed to Billy Napier's program. Florida now with 13 commitments and up to number 20 in the class rankings. God, I know it doesn't sound like much, but just remember Florida was outside the top 50 not that long ago. So the climb has been steady this summer, and if Florida can go out and do something on August 31st and a couple weeks later against Texas A&M, who knows? It would certainly open some eyes. But Florida trending up on the recruiting trail right now. And again, the player to watch now, August 25th, Nashawn Montgomery, the 4-star receiver from Miami Central, is set to announce his decision. Florida and LSU is top 2. Penn State also involved. All right. That will do it. Make sure you go to gatorsonline.com for more. Always make it pretty easy for you to sign up. We've got a bunch of stories, 5 things to really like about Ben Hanks Jr. I've got an article on his impact, short-term and long-term within the program and what it means in terms of as a recruiting pickup and as a perception pickup, all that. We have a story, who could be next to commit. We've got it all broken down for you. Go to gatorsonline.com. I appreciate you stopping by. Take care, everybody.